You're watching this video because you have one bugging question on your mind. Will the Brooklyn Nets win the 2022 title? Well, if they don't, who will? Quick bet, no other team will win. But how can you take my word and be sure that the Brooklyn Nets will secure the title come 2022? Here comes the best part. In today's video, we're going to be answering a very big question that'll tell us if the Brooklyn Nets will win the 2022 title. But before we get started, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on post notifications for this channel. Let's get started. How about we start with a brief history lesson. The Nets were founded in 1967 as the New Jersey Americans and were one of the charter franchises of the ABA. They played their first season in Teaneck, New Jersey, and had planned to move to Newark ahead of the 1968-1969 season, but instead wound up in Long Island, where they played in various arenas over the years as the New York Nets. In 1976, they were one of 4 ABA franchises to join the NBA and move back to New Jersey ahead of the 1977-1978 season. After 35 years in the Garden State, the Nets moved back to New York in 2012, this time setting up shop in Brooklyn and going by their current name, the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets titles. It took a few years for the Nets to become a threat in the ABA, but once they did, they became the most dominant team in the league, making 3 appearances in the ABA Finals in 6 seasons. The Nets made their first ABA Finals appearance in 1972, losing to the Pacers in 6 games. After losing in the first round of the postseason of 1973, the Nets made the biggest move in franchise history by acquiring Julius Erving. Erving won ABA MVP and led the team back to the finals, where they easily defeated the Utah Stars in 5 games with Dr. J, earning ABA playoffs MVP honors. Again in 1976, Erving led the Nets to a second ABA title in 3 seasons as they knocked off the Denver Nuggets in 6 games. He also won his 3rd straight MVP. The end of the road for the Nets. The Nets were on top of the world with Erving taking them through season by season and earning 2 championship titles. But things changed in the summer of 2001. The Nets traded for future Hall of Famer Jason Kidd, who led the team to a 52-30 record, their best mark since joining the NBA. The top seed in the Eastern Conference for the 2002 playoffs, the Nets knocked off the Pacers, Hornets, and Celtics to earn their first ever trip to the NBA Finals. However, they couldn't knock off Shaq and Kobe's Lakers, who finished off their three-peat with a 4-game sweep. The Nets came back to the finals the next year, losing just twice in the first 3 rounds of the postseason, but were again defeated in the title series, this time by Tim Duncan's San Antonio Spurs in 6 games. Since then, the Brooklyn Nets haven't had a chance at grabbing the championship, but come 2021, the team might be chanting the winner's chorus. While Brooklyn winning a title might not be stunning considering the talent they have on display, it would be a sharp reversal of the trend that normally helps predict the NBA championships, the Nets power trio. With these men on the team, anything short of the championship will be embarrassing for the Brooklyn Nets. Kevin Durant chose them over the New York Knicks and other suitors in 2019 because the Nets were further along in the process of being a contender. He brought along with him 7-time All-Star Kyrie Irving. He pushed to trade James Harden and recruited 6-time All-Star Blake Griffin. Brad Stevens, the coach of their first-round playoff opponent, described them as the most that have been assembled since he's been in the NBA. The Nets are beyond loaded. Will the Brooklyn Nets win the 2022 title? For starters, the Nets have been the favorite all season after they acquired James Harden. With players like James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, why won't the team be the season's favorite? Given the bubble in 2020 and the condensed offseason, injuries caught up to the Brooklyn Nets and everybody else in 2021. But with their trio of superstars, the Nets were 4-1 in the playoffs, and the lone loss was when Jason Tatum scored 50 points. Do the Brooklyn Nets have the players? Well, yes, they do. The best, in fact. That's enough to make them champions. What would stop the Nets from winning the title? Saying the Nets will win the championship title is a gamble. They may be a great team, but there are certain factors that could hinder them from bouncing their way to the title. One of those factors was Kyrie Irving's playoff history. He's currently hurt, and he was hurt in 2020. He was terrible in 2019 with Boston when he shot 35% from the field and 22% on 3-pointers in a 5-game loss to Milwaukee. Irving, however, left via free agency. Back in 2018, Irving was hurt and didn't play for the Celtics in a 7-game loss to Cleveland. Kevin Durant's health should also be put into consideration. As most NBA fans know, the season has marked former league MVP Kevin Durant's comeback from an Achilles heel injury that he suffered in the 2019 NBA Finals against the Toronto Raptors. An Achilles heel injury isn't one to treat lightly, as it has brought many players' careers to a halt. In recent memory, this injury has befallen DeMarcus Cousins, Kobe Bryant, Rudy Gay, and Wesley Matthews, all of whom were not the same upon on their returns. Durant has seemingly overcome this injury and returned to form, but has struggled to stay on the court nonetheless. Having the former two-time Finals MVP for their playoff run will be absolutely crucial for them winning a championship. But will it happen? Injury is also a key factor. In the previous seasons, the team's power trio played only 8 games together in the regular season, as it was difficult to keep them healthy at the same time. The trend continued in the playoffs as well, as all 3 featured in only the first round. Harden exited Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals with a hamstring strain. In Game 4, Irving sustained a high ankle sprain that sidelined him for the rest of the season. Undoubtedly, a healthy Brooklyn Nets team can cause some serious damage, and serious damage can fetch them the title. The team's defense is another factor that may hinder them from moving forward. Since 2001, every single NBA champion has ranked at least 11th in defensive rating. There have been several teams to make it to the finals with lower defensive ratings, such as 2015, 2017, and 2019 Cleveland Cavaliers and the 2019 Golden State Warriors, but none of them were able to bring home a championship. If the Nets win the finals, they would be a huge outlier, as they are currently ranked 25th in the NBA in defensive rating. While the Nets seem to be the favorite of the odds makers and everyday fans, they're still far from a championship lock. From defense to insufficient depth to questions about the health of their star players, they still have an uphill climb to the ultimate prize. While they certainly possess the talent and expertise necessary to bring a championship to Brooklyn, only time will tell if they can overcome these fundamental issues. Here's to hoping their big 3 and head coach Steve Nash has what it takes to make it all work. How exactly will the star-studded team perform? It's not as simple as the roster to determine their performance, even if it gets healthy. On the side of believing in the Nets, there are several things to look out for. I'm not talking about mere talent here, but what the talents have achieved for their team and the individuals this season. Irving is on the verge of a 50-40-90 season. That's incredibly rare even for some of the best all-time players. Harden, when he plays, is playing at least statistically at an MVP level, 25-8-11, with an infusion of skill and value for a Nets team he has at times carried. And Durant is, well, Durant, perhaps one of the most talented scorer the game has ever seen, and maybe when healthy, the game's best player. The Nets are 2022's favorite. The Los Angeles Lakers and Brooklyn Nets head into the offseason as the top 2 favorites to win the 2022 NBA championship, with the Nets the overall favorite at plus 200 odds, followed by the Lakers at plus 450 odds. The Nets were posted as the early favorite on BetMGM for the 2022 NBA championship with 9-4 odds, once the Milwaukee Bucks were crowned as the 2021 NBA champions. Brooklyn is followed by the Los Angeles Lakers at 9-2 odds. The Westgate expects the Nets and Lakers to return to health next season and regain their top form. The vice president of Westgate, Jeff Sherman, said, "Both teams had health concerns and weren't 100% this past season. We're putting these up based on them having healthy teams next year and how people will look to bet them." What happens without the Nets power trio? If the Nets power trio don't get to play during the championship season, the Brooklyn Nets bench players will do a pretty decent job at handling the team, but not decent enough to earn them the championship title. The Brooklyn Nets bench was superb during the regular season and was able to continue their winning streak in the absence of their power trio. Well, that's a wrap for today's video, guys. Now that you know more about the Brooklyn Nets and their chances of winning the championship title, let us know in the comments section if you think they'll be 2022's next champions. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on post notifications for this channel. We have loads of exciting content coming up for you.